is all about. But human rights are entitlements that human beings must claim by the fact that they are human beings, regardless of whether you're black, whether you're a Muslim, whether you were a Christian, whether you were an atheist, regardless of that social belonging, you are entitled to enjoy equal rights just like the other class. You know that a number of cases have held human rights to be inherent. They're not state given. You get? The state does not give one entitlements. It does not give you the right to be, the right not to be incarcerated for more than a certain period of time. And if it does not give you that right, the state has an obligation to ensure you are entitled to equal treatment before and under the law, just like any other. If you may want to be told that you are entitled to the same right like the Americans, the Europeans, the Indians, the Chinese, so you are as a black man, as an African, without any form of discrimination or special treatment. You may read a number of cases that have held to that effect, that the state's obligation in as far as human rights are concerned are entirely three: to respect, promote, and protect. So that is the role of the state in human rights. It does not give us the rights. Like my brother has asked me to entirely look at international human rights law, we need to understand that the genesis of human rights law internationally was as a result of Second World War and the creation of the United Nations. After that formation, there came a need to ensure that what the United Nations was implement was world over observed. You get? As a result, we saw a number of other developments. So I will discuss my piece. I may not be able to share. I will not share my piece, but I will endeavor to now looking at the international human rights laws. They emerge out of the bigger law or the grand norm. We would call the grand norm in this aspect. And we all know this law is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This law is internationally, world over, recognized as the bedrock of human rights. It does not give, but it just states the laws, the rights. You get? And the state's obligation is to protect, like I have told you in the preamble, that the state does not give us the rights. So does the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. However, it states them, and all it does is to guarantee. It does not give us the rights. So after a number of the laws, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, this entirely looks at civil and political rights. Civil rights are, among others, the right to own property, the right to liberty, you know, the political rights, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, then the covenant against torture, you know, this is another instrument that prohibits torture And this has been domesticated here because Uganda is a member of the United Nations. And so it has domesticated this law by legislating what is known as the prohibition, the Anti-Torture Act, you know. So this law is in our law, in a case for Uganda. I would not want to dwell into here, but I want to bring our members on board. Because when we discuss it at all on the international level, it may limit their understanding of what this law has been like in our case. And then we have a convention on the elimination of all forms of racial discrimination. This looks at not having the blacks, the so-called white aside, the yellowish. So it looks at us not having people discriminated based on their race. It is a bigger vice in the country, in the world over today, where people are looked at and marginalized based on their race. Then there is a covenant on the social, economic, and cultural rights. This looks at or aims at observing the social and economic as well as the cultural rights of people, the black people, the Indians, the Chinese. You know, it is this law that aims at rights in respect of the social, cultural, and economic rights. So if there is any form of abuse or violation in regards to economic, social, this is the law that the people can claim under. Then we have the Convention on the Rights of a Child. This one protects the children's rights. And we have domesticated this in our country. We have a number of laws that protect children, as well as establishing the court system. For example, we have the Children Amendment Act of 2016. It arises out of this, you know, and it arises out of also the African Charter on the Rights of the Child. So these are some of the laws, but I am also certain of the Covenant on Migrant Workers, the Covenant on Rights of Persons with Disability, and then the Covenant on the enforced disappearance, which looks at people do not disappear without explanation. So if you have anyone that has disappeared and you have sought remedies locally and you have failed, you can prosecute your matter internationally, relying under this law. Then we also have the African Charter on Humans and People's Rights. We have the Maputo Protocol that is almost a replica of the Covenant on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, among other laws. I wanted to also address our minds to the African Union Charter. The African Union has a number of instruments besides the what we would consider as international laws. When it comes to Africa as a continent, we have that segment of laws that still protect human rights, in that if I fail to get a remedy in Uganda, I can petition the African Court of Justice, the African Commission on Human Rights. So I wanted us to also have that engagement. Then my brother also asked me to look at systems that protect and promote human rights. These systems are entirely charter-based and treaty-based. Charter-based systems are those that arise out of the United Nations Charter of 1948 that protect and promote human rights. And I have said that human rights are based on either chartered-based systems that arise out of the 1948 United Nations Charter, or they are treaty-based. When it comes to charter-based, Those that are charter-based are entirely looked at in three ways. They include, among others, the United Nations Human Rights Council, that is composed of 47 member states, which council gets to meet 3 times and works through a line of experts. Then there's what they call the other charter-based system is the special procedure. The special procedure is composed of or comprised of independent experts, and these experts are entirely mandated with visiting member states to evaluate the situation of human rights. I have had the honor to work with Foundation for Human Rights Initiative in Uganda. It's a human rights protection and promotion body that is entirely an NGO, and one of our works is to evaluate the member state situation in regards to human rights, and these draw recommendations that are forwarded to the council to take appropriate steps. Universal periodic review entirely looks at other states, evaluating other states. I think we have heard this. Uganda was evaluated universally on the 22nd of January, where a number of recommendations were made. All right, that is one of the other and last charter-based systems. Then we have what they call the treaty-based bodies. These treaty-based bodies or systems come out of the treaties that states have ratified. And once you ratify a treaty, then you become bound by that treaty. In Uganda, we have Article 123 that allows Uganda to ratify international treaties, and the president can assent to those treaties. And once we ratify those treaties, we become part and parcel of them. Therefore, these treaties are entirely out of the earlier laws we looked at. So these treaties are by a principle of pacta sunt servanda, that parties, once they sign such a treaty, they therefore become bound. Therefore, once Uganda has ratified the treaty, maybe on elimination of all forms of discrimination, it is an obligation to protect, observe, and respect that treaty. And once a violation arises, then Uganda becomes a violator, and it can be held liable for having violated a treaty. Therefore, you realize that those laws that we have not ratified or do not rise out of the Charter of the UN, then we are not bound by them. But once we ratify, or by implication that we are members of the United Nations, then we become bound by those treaties. And among the treaty-based bodies, these range from the United Nations Human Rights Committee, which is comprised of other treaty-based committees, from Human Rights Committee, and then the Committee on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, a committee against torture. This addresses torture matters. A committee on rights and on the rights of children or the rights of a child. A committee on migrant workers. So it is through these committees that people are able to claim against any forms of violation. Should your claim be on children? Should your claim be on torture? You proceed under that relevant committee that will evaluate and prefer the same to the United Nations Committee of further ado.
Okay.
Then you have also asked me to address you on a forum and the procedure. Now you will realize
in 1
that
minute.
the Human Rights Committee or the United Nations Human Rights Council direct. The procedure and the forums will vary. In this case, I want to use Uganda as a case study to give members a broader picture of how you can have your complaint lodged before the bodies I've mentioned above. You shall realize that for victims to be able to lodge their complaints, they must have exhausted all local remedies. Failure to do that can result into denial of the complaint, because once a complaint is lodged, it shall be considered on matters of whether it is admissible. And once it does not meet those criteria, then it can be trashed in language. And you really want to him, that person must have exhausted the available remedies. For example, in Uganda, you shall realize that Uganda is a member and is a signatory to the Universal Declaration. And our constitution, the 1995, is very elaborate on both derogable and non-derogable human rights. So you shall realize that these rights, once you want to make a claim on them, you have to approach the claim differently. You get? When it comes to derogable rights, these are rights that the state has a right to limit. You get? And the non-derogable are those rights that the state cannot exclude us from enjoying whatsoever cost. That even when COVID is at its peak, those rights must be observed. For example, these rights are under Article 44 of our Constitution, and should the state limit them, then we may go to courts of law and seek a remedy, or to the appropriate bodies. For example, the Human Rights Commission 123 allows Uganda to ratify international treaties. Those I have mentioned, and I have also told you those that are under Chapter 4, except for those under Article 45 and Article 44. But most importantly, those under Article 44, and they include the right to freedom from torture, cruel, inhuman, degrading treatment or punishment, freedom from slavery, the right to a fair hearing, the right to an order of habeas corpus. Should the state maybe have people disappear, the state will be compelled always to bring those bodies, whether dead or alive, before courts of law. The state is under an obligation to ensure that people are heard by impartial courts. Then human rights enforcement. I'm trying to align the concept of rights in line with the Ugandan concept. How do you get to the committees that I've stated above? For one to do that, we have an enforcement mechanism in Uganda, and the legal framework is by the Constitution, the Judicature Act, the Civil Procedure Rules, the Human Rights Enforcement Act of
we had a video, but I will send you the link later, where it shows what is the United for Human Rights. United for Human Rights is an international organization, non-profit organization, where we are implementing the Universal Declaration of Human Rights at local, regional, national, and international level. When we are talking about local level, we are talking about, we start from a rural area, at your place, at your road where you live, from a village, from a village, we come from a district, from a city, from a country. What I'm telling you is something that I did it in Mauritius. I started from my place, from my home, because like we tell you previously, my rights has been violated. And when we are talking about rights has been violated, since the age of 16, I have been brutally beaten by police officers. And even I have been beaten, I try to know my rights. What is a human rights? Why, when we are from a poor family, we are having this situation, and how we can fight for it. So I started to search and to know what is our rights, what is our human rights, how it is, and what we find that everyone have a right. The rights that we call the first rights is the rights to live, the rights that we have. We are all born free and equal. So I will not go in detail with all this video, all these details, because these are things that we have on Facebook, on our page, Facebook page. We'll see, you will have all the documentation. What I'm going to tell you is how to promote human rights. First things that we need to do is research on human rights issues that we have in our country. Firstly, what you will see is that we started here. If you are connected with internet, Facebook, you will see that last year, many people came on the road for human rights violations that was having with the Wakasho ships that has been leak petrol in our seaside. And also with a lot of issues that we are having with politicians and police brutality and so on. The United for Human Rights for Mauritius, we did awareness on advocacy on what we can say police brutality, rights of education, rights to live. You will get everything on our page. Secondly, the second ways that we can do for preventing human rights from being violated is doing. You can move on the 8th slide. Is there another one? Yeah, change change our shopping. No, you move too fast. On the page 8
Page 8.
Yeah, changing your shopping habit. What we are talking about changing of your shopping habit is we have lots of our NGO, lots of people here in different countries, different places. But donating money in one is the best way to promote human rights. You will say why? Because when we are donating is the best way that because these organizations know who and where needs this support. Human rights violation, like I can tell you, the Yeshua Fellowship, since last year, we have been able to support and stop the violation of Article 26, the rights to live and rights to have food. Because of the COVID-19, Mauritius has been under the curfew order. Lots of families didn't have some things to eat because they have what they work, they have it to eat at night. But with this donating to a good organization, has been able to support lots of people here in Mauritius. Even now, we are continuing to do it. The United for Human Rights Mauritius and Youth for Human Rights Mauritius with the Yeshua Fellowship, actually we are supporting 626 families with individual which gave you around 6,000 people. We are doing it here in Mauritius. And when I'm talking about Africa, we have lots of NGOs, we have lots of projects that can be done. Now, another thing that we can do is changing your shopping way. When we are talking of changing your shopping way is to support your economic of your country. Another way to promote human rights is to connect to a human rights movement, which I did. And now I can say that we are trying to bring human rights in national things here in Mauritius. It's easy to promote, to join a group, to work and to be promote the human rights. Another thing that you can do is vote in every election, because when we are talking for vote, we are talking about our voice. We are talking about our articles. And when we are talking about articles, we are talking about our rights. Each 5 years here in Mauritius, we have the national election here, where we have the power to change the government, to change everyone, to know their rights, the system, to change everything. But when we are doing it, don't go with money, don't go with salary. We need to know who we are voting, how we are voting, because these people are here to our voice, to be our voice, to be at as a parliament, to be our voice. Because when we are talking about this, we are talking about Article 15, nationality. We are talking about Article 21, democracy. Everyone has a right to equal access to public service. When we are talking about everything, we are talking about the right of vote. These things are some things that we need to understand. When we know our rights, we will be able to promote human rights by voting. Next slide. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. This is the next slide.
This one is to put, to put pressure on those responsible for upholding human rights. When we are talking about it, we are talking about the government. We are talking about the Human Rights Act that we have, people who is here like a watchdog to promote, to protect our human rights. When we are talking about to voice out, we are talking way to do it, not to go against the government, to do the procedure, to put pressure. The things that we can do is to do petition, letters, everything that we can do, because when you're alone, you're doing something alone, nothing will happen. But when we are a group of people, we're doing it, things can be changed. A lot of things has been changed here in Mauritius. Next. Is it okay or I go in detail with everything? Hello? The next slide is to protest inequalities. Peaceful protest is one of the most powerful support to human rights. What we are trying to say here, last year, we had some issues here in Mauritius where people came out on the road to protest, where we said that they are killing our democracy because some things have been changed on the parliament. We don't have the right to say, we don't have the right to do some changes and so on, lots of things that happen. But Mauritians has come on road to protest, to voice out that they are not agree. We have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which need to be protected, to be taken as responsibility. It's our responsibility, not people to here over there or anywhere who will protect our human rights. It's us, it's our responsibility to protect our human rights. Next. Support our mothers and parents. This you may say that it's not it's something that we can say not it's going not to be, but it's something that we are saying it's protecting our rights, because when women and children are the two most vulnerable group in the world, and when we are talking this has been statistically and research has been done where we have found out that children and women are the most people's rights has been violated in different countries in different ways. And in some countries, women's children are being taken like an object, or being sold, or being sold in market. And when we do history, we read history, we find that there is slavery, and all this come with women's and children has been started over there. Next action that we have, take action when you see discrimination. People, what I have been observed in different countries, when we have lots of human rights violation, everyone wait for someone or a hero to come to save us. It's not that. It's like everyone matters when we are talking about discrimination, because human rights, you can promote human rights in your daily life by doing some things. When you witness things like racism, sexism, take action can mean different things depending on the situation. Commit to find out what best serve to. You're going to first. Okay, yeah. Commit to find out the best way to help oppose and try to play the hero. An example is discrimination at work. Try to talk to the people who said that the target of discrimination. In Mauritius, in 2020, we had a situation where Bangladeshis came to Mauritius. They was treated inhumanly. So the Youth for Human Rights and United for Human Rights advocate for them. We try to advocate, we try to change something. And what we can say, things has been done. At the Indian embassy, at the Bangladeshi embassy, we try to advocate. If we stay still and we don't voice out, today you will have one human rights will be violated. Tomorrow we will have two. Another day we'll have five. But if we put a stop with it, we voice out about it, things can be changed. Next slide, please. 16. Support your economic rights. This is something that we need to do in every country, because what we do now, we try to purchase online, to do something online. But if we support our vulnerable and host inequality like healthcare, education, housing, and more economic rights also fuels violence, human trafficking. If you want to promote human rights, you don't forget about poverty. Poverty is something that in every country we have it. In Mauritius, we have around 200,000 families who is being in this situation, but we are trying to advocate. I am an example of this. My parent was in a poverty situation, but we try, we study, we voice out, and now I'm starting to work. I have brings a change of poverty for my family. Every youth, every youngsters need to understand it so that we can do it. We can bring the change of poverty. If we don't do it, our country will be lost, and economic support will be also in a deep loss. The next slide is a video that I want to show you. It's about responsibility. When we're talking about responsibility, we're talking about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 29, responsibility. Can you play the video, please? Is how do the United for Human Rights International and Youth for Human Rights defend and protect our human rights here in all country where we have the Youth for Human Rights and United for Human Rights. First things that we do petition to the government on the Universal Declaration is a fundamental and international agreement. So what we do a community, we went on the community, we do petition, we make public awareness and explain then what is the Universal Declaration as you see in the picture. Next one that we have is creating and share link to us. Youth for Human Rights, United for Human Rights International, and Mauritius also, we have Facebook page. You can find us on Facebook. What we do, we create petition online also. Like recently, we did a petition for people to know their rights. And soon we'll have another petition that we are going to do, right, for a house, to a decent place to live, to be insecure, because recently Mauritius has been facing a 2 cyclone, and we have lots of people which house has been damaged. So we are going to do petition to the government to make advocacies with NGOs also. Next, what we do, we start a group. We start a group like the United for Human Rights Mauritius, that where we have here. We have the Youth for Human Rights. We do groups and where we try to advocate. We do advocacy, we do petition, we do awareness. For the United for Human Rights, we are doing awareness with public officers, we are doing with government officers, we're doing it at school, we are doing it with several NGOs. And what we can say, last year, we have been able to touch around 12,000 people with our awareness, door to door, and even in community-based awareness. This year, we're trying to go through college and where people are. Next slide that we have is lost petition drives. Well, like we will see in photos, we have public officers, a police commissioner who is the previous police commissioner. We just changed the police commissioner. He has been assigned a petition with us, a document what we call a proclamation. The mayor of the QPIP city has signed this proclamation. Proclamation is a document where you are saying that human rights is something that we need to be applied at both level. When we are working with police officers, we make police officers also sign this document because they are public servants and they need to apply this, we call the Universal Declaration of Human Rights at all levels. No discrimination, no arrest without any arrest warrant. So That is something that we are doing. We are trying to support the government. Now, obtain copies of human rights and film and public messages. Like you will see, we distribute human rights booklet in communities with people, with children. What we do it door to door. We explain people what are human rights, what are their rights, how to protect it, how it will protect them in their day-to-day life. These things are that we do here in Mauritius, and also report human rights when there is abuse. We have several NGOs like Amnesty International, who is one of the well-known NGOs who is here for advocacy and also for human rights violation. We have Human Rights Action Center, we have Human Rights Watch, and for children, we have Children's Defense Fund.
Yeah. Can everyone see that?
Yes, I think it's
Can
coming
you see
up.
my
Yes,
screen?
perfect. We can see.
Okay. All right. Good evening once again from Nigeria. I am Dr. Ngozi. My own lecture is simple. It is the basic understanding of human rights. Now, the focus of this lecture will be on what is human rights, the origin and how it started, how many are there, why do we have them, then the conclusion. What is human rights? My two colleagues have said so much about human rights. I'm just going to add a little to that. Human rights is all about standards, respect, fairness, freedom, values we attach to humanity. How we see our fellow humans, how we treat the person with dignity and integrity. In some sense, it's giving everyone equal sense of responsibility, making everyone feel that he or she is part and parcel of the society. Is about inclusion and not exclusion, because the human person is created with reasoning and power, irrespective of gender, disability, ethnicity, color, status, religion, whatever. Every human has rights. For the fact that you are alive, for the fact that you are living, you have the right to exist functionally and do the things you should to contribute and participate in the community you live in. Now, the origin of human rights. How did it all started? Yes, we almost have heard of the Second World War, where so much catastrophe took place. When the history looked back and shuddered at what happened during the World War II, when 6 million Jews were slaughtered, gypsies, persons with disabilities, all of them were terminated. You know about the gas chamber and all those hills that took place then made the leaders to have a 360-degree turnaround to think and to begin to talk about how have we come to this? What are we going to do to make the world a better place for everybody? But then you might begin to wonder, does it mean there have not been, kind of rights or standards that make people to live and respect one another? Of course, there we are. In 2015, there was the Magna Carta. 2016, 28, there was the Petition of Right that set the rights on the people. 1776, 1789, the English Bill of Rights, the US Constitution and Bill of Rights, all these have existed. But then one major cross against this was that there was exclusion of women and some other things that we are not so right that formed. We have today our Universal Declaration of Human Rights, United Nations. This was proclaimed in Paris on 10 December in 1948, when the leaders come together and agreed on this document to help humanity, to save humanity from despair, from wickedness, and from all evil from their fellow humans. Today, the UDR has been translated into 500 languages, and it has been adopted by 56 members of the United Nations as of now. And those human rights documents are seen as independent and indivisible. They have also been incorporated into the constitutions of more than 185 nations. That's the members of the UN, of course. And these UDR have achieved the status of customary international law, which are being used today in many countries. Now, the human rights are 30 articles. My other colleague from Human Rights International said something about that. These are the 30 articles. I'm not going to read them, one after the other, but we have to know the major ones. In fact, all of them are very important. There is right to equality, freedom, right to life, freedom from slavery, and all that. There are 30 of them. And these 30 human rights articles are meant for us. They are meant for us to use so that the world will be a better place. We need to know this right, to use it for our own good and for the good of everyone. Why do we have them? Because we want a world where everything works. We want a world where we all feel belonged, a world where we can all have voice. Again, we want the human rights are very important that we know them because it will help us to have voice, to speak. It will help us to feel safe, even when you are being intimidated or when you are being harassed. You know that that person will be brought to book. It gives us freedom to act judiciously, to participate and contribute to development. It ensures good life for everyone. It protects against social injustice. It also checkmates all forms of ills and discriminations from people who think that they are stronger or higher than us. Now, the total observances of the human rights is for everyone to have a change, just like the last speaker said. We need to have a change of attitude, a change of, of having this opinion that one person or the other person, that there are people who do not matter. No, there must be a change. Remember the great saying that said, do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. That is the basis, the brief, the summary of the 30 articles of human rights. Because respecting others simply tell who we are. When you don't respect, people easily see you as someone who is not mad, someone who is evil, and someone whom others should distance themselves from. In conclusion, adherence to human rights in our daily activities, we enhance building the future we want. We want a better future. We want a future where women, men, young, old, educated, not educated, people in remote communities, people in the city, where everyone, whether rich or young, where everyone will have a good future, a happy future, a good life, a good world, where we can all live peacefully and coexist the way it should. These do not happen unless we make them happen. So for us to make human rights happen, we need to work towards it. We need to accommodate and include everybody in whatever we do. Thank you so much. Thank you, Josh. I'm done.
Oh, wow, that was so interesting. It seems you so much in the activism. I've had our activists here speak with so much passion, so much vigor of that passion for human rights. I can feel it in your presentation. We have the likes of Dr. Stella Nyanzi here, who was exiled some time back. She has a political asylum because she was speaking, vigorously, passionately about the human rights, more especially for the writers and most of people who write in Uganda, more especially to check on the government powers. They are enemies. They actually become enemies to the state. So thank you for sharing that. And at this very moment, if we have critical questions, I'll give a chance to honestly, because we are out of time. I realized we were supposed to have about 1.5 hours of discussing this, and we are going in 2 hours. So if you have a question, we are going to take on with
me.
Yes, I can.
Hello. Okay, she asked why Africans are good in talking about human rights, but when it comes to implementation, there is a problem, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. You know, generally in Africa, we are still backwards when it comes to implementation of human rights. I don't want to say it's because we are still developing. Maybe it is, but a lot has to be done on our leaders. You know, when cases are reported and nothing is done about it, more ills, more issues on human rights will come in. So it stems from the leaders. Because when things are done right at the top, the bottom will follow. But that will not, you know, prevent us from doing right, from reporting, and from helping out when we see that someone is being maltreated, or when we see that someone's right is being infringed on. We must continue to do what you're supposed to do, report to the appropriate authorities, believing that we'll all get there someday. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me hope your question is answered. Then the next question, no question. I think no question. Okay, I really would love to come back the next the second round asking you the questions, because I've noted all of them here, but I've realized that time is against us. And for that matter, I know human rights is a very big topic that we cannot complete in one day. And we shall keep, because we have a human rights education series, programs, and I believe we shall keep on revisiting this. We shall keep on inviting you again to discuss this. I would like to, before even I thank you, I would like to invite each one of the panelists to give their closing remarks. What is your take? What do you take, you know, from this whole issue of human rights? What would you like to conclude with as we end this session? Again, I'll start with you, Dr. Ngozi.
My take home for today. First of all, let me thank everyone that joined in this webinar. I want to say that human rights are many, and we cannot fold our hands when someone is being maltreated. It is good that we know all the articles and put them into use to protect our own and to protect ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Yassin, if you're still there.
And has been saying we need to take part when he was talking about promotion of human rights. Let's carry this African generation that can communicate to the rest of the world that we are a transformed group of people. Lest no one will change our situation. So if we are knowledgeable, we are informed, let's then take a step, just like George has organized us, to offer this to the rest of the people. So thank you very much. I wish you a blessed night.
Shama, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here. For me, what I'm going to say is some words that Nelson Mandela said when he was fighting for the human rights. He always said, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. Human rights is the same thing. We need to speak it in a language that every people will understand. We need to explain them what is its content, how it will be benefit for us, how we are going to use it, and how it will bring a change at our level, our global level, our country level, and our world level. It will be something that we need to put it in our head, in our mind. Thank you.
Okay, that was so interesting. I also want to take this opportunity to first of all thank all the panelists, Dr. Ngozi, Mr. Sharma, Mr. Yassin. Please, thank you for honoring our invitation. Thank you for being part of this conversation. Thank you for accepting. Thank you for loving human rights. Thank you for loving this topic. Now, to our dear participants, thank you also for attending this interesting webinar. And just know this is one of the few webinars but we have more still in the box, and we are bringing more. If you want to join the next sessions, please just go to our Facebook page at Africa Injustice Media, where this live stream has been. live stream too. And also you can go to our YouTube channel, African Justice Media. In case you want to get in touch with me, you need us to discuss human rights and other issues in relation to justice, freedom, liberty, African economic prosperity, and the like. Just go to Facebook, search about George Justice Kanyehamba, or you can go to African Justice Media. You can inbox one of those accounts and I'll be able to get back to you. Also, you can go to Twitter. I use the same names, African George Justice Kanyehamba. I have been George Justice Kanyehamba and I work with African Justice Media, but don't, we still have these sessions and, just get in touch with us and we'll be able to invite you for our next sessions. Thank you so much. Enjoy your night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, all, and good night.
Thank you, George. Thank you, George, for a job well done. Excellent.
Thank you, George. Thank you.